The story opens in the Nexus core, a massive space station floating in the heart of the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the Dominion has ruled over 200 star systems. They call themselves the Eternal Ones, beings who claim to have transcended mortal flesh long ago. The Eternal Ones appear as tall, glowing figures wrapped in energy fields. They speak only through telepathy, never using crude vocal sounds like lesser species. Their leader, known simply as Prime, sits on a throne of crystallized starlight in the central chamber. Around the galaxy, countless alien races serve the Dominion. The blue-skinned Cathmine asteroids with their 4 arms. The insect-like Vrix tend to the agricultural worlds. The gaseous Helm maintain the space stations. All of them worship the Eternal Ones as gods. Today marks another Ascension Day, when the Dominion expands to claim new worlds. Prime floats before a massive holographic display showing unexplored sectors. His thoughts reach out to the assembled council of 12 other Eternal Ones. The Outer Rim holds promise. Prime's mental voice echoes in their minds. Sensors detect primitive civilizations. They will serve well. One council member, called Apex, projects concern. The scans show unusual energy readings from the third spiral arm, something different. Prime dismisses the worry with a wave of his glowing hand. All species kneel before gods, eventually. Ready the harvest fleets. The camera pulls back to show the true scope of their empire. Thousands of ships move between stars like schools of fish. Massive orbital factories churn out goods. Entire planets have been converted into city worlds housing trillions of servants. But in the dark space between galaxies, something stirs. Ancient monitoring stations, left behind by a long-dead civilization, suddenly activate. They detect the Dominion's expansion and send out a single pulse toward a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system. The pulse travels for days through folded spacetime. It reaches Earth just as humanity is taking its first steps into the void. The message is simple. They come. Prepare. Back in the Nexus core, the Eternal Ones begin their ritual of expansion. They drain energy from captured stars to fuel their godlike powers. The lesser species chant in perfect harmony, their voices creating a psychic resonance that strengthens their masters. Prime raises both arms, and stellar maps appear around him. Red dots mark worlds ready for conquest. His mental voice booms across the station. Let all creation tremble. The gods expand their realm once more. The harvest fleets launch, their dark ships blotting out the stars. But as they head toward the Outer Rim, long-range sensors pick up something impossible. Radio waves, electromagnetic transmissions. The crude communications of a species still using primitive technology. Curious, Prime muses. They broadcast their presence like children calling in the dark. How primitive. How ... quaint. The Eternal Ones laugh, a sound like crystal bells ringing in perfect harmony. They have encountered thousands of species, and all follow the same pattern. First contact, then awe, then worship, then servitude. It never fails. But this time, as their advanced scouts approach the small yellow star, they intercept something that gives them pause. Not the usual mix of entertainment and communication signals they expect from developing worlds. Something else: music, mathematics, scientific data. And underneath it all, something the Eternal Ones haven't heard in millennia: the sound of voices. Raised not in worship, but in defiance. Humans singing together, laughing together, shouting together. The raw, organic sounds of vocal communication. How barbaric, Apex comments. They still use their throat cavities to make noise. But Prime feels something he hasn't experienced in centuries: curiosity. These creatures are different. Most species go silent when they detect the Dominion's approach. These humans seem to be getting louder. The first contact fleet drops out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their arrival sends gravitational waves rippling through spacetime. Every electronic device on Earth flickers. The sky lights up with aurora effects. In the Nexus core, Prime connects to the fleet commander's mind. Begin standard protocol. Show them our glory. Let them see gods. The massive ships move toward the inner system, their hulls gleaming with stolen starlight. They expect the primitive humans to fall to their knees in terror and worship. They expect silence, submission, the beginning of another easy conquest. Instead, something unprecedented happens. Every radio station on Earth crackles to life at once. Not with panic or prayers, but with a single voice. Clear, defiant, and impossibly loud. A human voice that somehow cuts through the quantum static of the godship's presence. "This is Earth," the voice says. "We've been waiting for you." The Eternal Ones freeze. In 3,000 years of conquest, nothing like this has ever happened. Gods are not greeted as equals. They are about to learn that humanity plays by different rules. Asterisk, the voice that echoes through space, belongs to Commander Jake Miller, speaking from the newly constructed Deep Space Communications Array in orbit around Earth. His words reach not just the approaching alien fleet, but somehow penetrate the quantum-encrypted channels of the Eternal Ones themselves. Prime's perfect composure cracks for the first time in centuries. How are they broadcasting on our frequencies? That should be impossible. In the fleet command ship, Admiral Vorth, a converted alien who has served the Dominion for 800 years, stares at his displays in confusion. The human transmissions are coming through every system at once. Their primitive radio waves are somehow interfacing with technology beyond their understanding. Back on Earth, Jake stands in the communications center, surrounded by the planet's best scientists and military leaders. Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's leading xenobiologist, monitors the incoming data streams. General Rex Thompson coordinates with military bases worldwide. They've had 3 days to prepare since the gravitational disturbance announced the aliens' arrival. "All stations report ready," Rex says, his gruff voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "If these visitors are hostile, we're as prepared as we can be." The alien fleet maintains position at the edge of the solar system. They're massive. Ships forming geometric patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Each vessel is the size of a city, built from materials that bend light around them. Prime's mental voice booms across the fleet. "Begin standard subjugation protocol. Project our divine forms. Let them witness true power." The ships begin to glow, channeling the stolen energy of dead stars. Holographic projections of the Eternal Ones appear in Earth's sky, towering figures of pure light, their forms shifting and impossible to focus on directly. It's a display that has brought countless species to their knees, but the humans react differently. Instead of panic or worship, the response is curiosity. "Fascinating," Dr. Park says, recording everything. They're using some form of controlled plasma projection combined with gravitational lensing. The energy requirements must be enormous. Jake keys the radio again. "Impressive light show. We've got some pretty good fireworks, too. Would you like to see?" Before the aliens can respond, Earth's night side lights up. Not with weapons, but with celebration. Every major city activates its lights at once. Fireworks launch from dozens of nations. The Aurora Borealis research stations trigger artificial light displays that paint the sky in brilliant colors. Eternal Ones watch in stunned silence as the small blue world transforms into a beacon of light and sound. Instead of cowering in fear, the humans are putting on a show of their own. Are they ... celebrating? Apex asks, confusion evident even in his mental voice. On Earth, the response grows louder. Radio stations coordinate the largest broadcast in human history. Voices from every continent join together, not in prayer or surrender, but in greeting. Children sing songs in dozens of languages. Scientists share their latest discoveries. Musicians play symphonies that blend classical compositions with rock, jazz, and folk melodies from around the world. It's chaotic, messy, and completely unorganized. Everything the Eternal One's perfect order is not. Prime tries to regain control. His mental voice hammers against human minds, seeking to dominate them as he has done to countless other species. But something blocks him. The human's thoughts are protected by something he's never encountered, their sheer, stubborn individuality. Kneel before your gods, Prime commands, pouring divine energy into his words. Jake's response comes back immediately. We tried that God thing already. Didn't work out too well for us. How about we just talk instead? The fleet commander Vorth reports to Prime with growing concern. Master, their technology is primitive, but their social structure is unlike anything in our databases. They have no central authority to convert, no single ruler to dominate. They operate as individuals who somehow coordinate without direct control. Dr. Park continues her analysis, speaking to Jake. Their ships show signs of multiple conquered. Technologies integrated together. I think these gods are actually parasites who absorb other civilizations. Jake nods and broadcasts again. We're getting some interesting readings from your ships. Looks like you've been collecting souvenirs from other worlds. How many species have you conquered? The question hits the Eternal Ones like a physical blow. No primitive species has ever asked them to justify their actions. They simply take what they wish, as gods should. But as the weapons power up, something extraordinary happens. Every human-made satellite in Earth's orbit suddenly activates in perfect synchronization. Not with weapons, but with a single, unified transmission that cuts through space like a blade. The transmission carries the voices of 8 billion humans speaking in unison. We are not alone, and we are not afraid. The words echo through the void, carried by technology the Eternal Ones don't understand, powered by a unity they've never witnessed, and backed by a defiance that shakes the perfect order to its core. For the first time in 3 millennia, gods hesitate. The unified human transmission does more than just reach the Eternal Ones. It propagates through the quantum communication network that connects the entire Dominion Empire. Across 200 star systems, enslaved species hear something they thought was extinct, the sound of freedom. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the blue-skinned Keth pause in their asteroid harvesting. Their 4 arms stop moving as Jake. Miller's voice echoes through their workstations. We are not alone, and we are not afraid. For the first time in centuries, a Keth engineer named Tor looks up at the stars and remembers what his people were before the gods came. In the agricultural domes of Proxima Station, the insect-like Vrix cease their endless toil. Queen Hive Mother. Zix feels something stir in her genetic memory, the echo of a time when her species made choices for themselves. The human voice carries an impossible concept. Resistance. Back in the Nexus core, panic spreads through the perfect halls of the gods. Prime's energy form flickers with rage as reports flood in from across the Empire. The enslaved species are not rebelling, not yet, but they're stopping, thinking, remembering. Impossible. Apex transmits to the Council. The human broadcast is using our own infrastructure against us. How do they understand quantum entanglement communication? Prime's response shakes the station. It matters not how. Destroy them, now. At the edge of Earth's solar system, Admiral Vorth powers up the fleet's star-killer weapons. These are not mere lasers or missiles, but devices that can destabilize a star's core and turn entire solar systems into stellar graveyards. The Eternal Ones have used them to erase defiant worlds before, but as the weapons charge, every human-made device in the solar system begins transmitting simultaneously. Not just Earth, every probe, every satellite, every piece of equipment humans have. Scattered across their home system in their first tentative steps into space, Dr. Park monitors the readings with growing amazement. Jake, this is impossible. The power requirements for this kind of coordinated transmission should exceed our total energy output by factors of thousands. Jake grins despite the gravity of the situation. Maybe we're tapping into something they didn't expect. Keep recording everything. The human voices grow louder, not just in volume, but in something deeper. Every transmission carries the stories of humanity, their history of struggle, their refusal to stay conquered, their habit of turning disasters into opportunities. Prime feels something he hasn't experienced in millennia: doubt. His perfect order, built on the submission of lesser beings, is being challenged by creatures who refuse to recognize their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Master, Borth reports, the Star Killer weapons are fully charged, but our targeting systems are being disrupted. The humans are broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. Our computers cannot isolate their world from the interference. Jake's voice cuts through the static again. Having trouble with your aim? That's what happens when you rely too much on stolen technology instead of understanding it. The words hit their mark. Dr. Park's analysis is correct. The Eternal Ones are technological parasites. They've conquered hundreds of species and absorbed their knowledge, but they never truly understood it. They simply layered stolen science on top of their godlike powers. But humans approach technology differently. They don't just use it. They break it down, understand it, improve it, and make it their own. And somehow, in just 3 days since detecting the alien approach, they've figured out how to turn the Dominion's own communication network against them. On worlds across the galaxy, the enslaved species are hearing not just human voices, but the echoes of their own forgotten cultures. The Keth remember their mathematical poetry. The Vrix recall their hive songs of independence. These humans aren't just threatening one world. They're threatening the entire foundation of the Dominion. If the enslaved species remember who they were before the gods came, the Empire will crumble. All ships, prime commands, converge on the source. Use conventional weapons if necessary. That voice must be silenced. The fleet begins its approach toward Earth, but something strange happens. The human transmissions begin to change. Instead of one voice, they become many. Millions of individual humans speaking at once, not in unison, but in harmony. They share their languages, their music, their mathematics, their dreams. Each voice is different, but together they create something greater than the sum of their parts. It's everything the Eternal One's perfect order is not: chaotic, unpredictable, and vibrantly alive. Jake speaks one more time, his words carrying across the void. You call yourselves gods, but gods don't steal their power from others. Gods create, gods inspire, gods protect. You're just very old bullies who forgot what it means to be challenged. The transmission ends with something that makes the Eternal Ones recoil: human laughter. Not the bitter laugh of the defeated or the mad giggle of the broken, but the warm, genuine laughter of people who find joy even in the face of overwhelming odds. For the first time in their eternal existence, the gods feel something approaching fear. The Dominion fleet accelerates toward Earth with weapons primed, but the Eternal Ones quickly discover that conventional warfare isn't as simple as it once was. Every time they target Earth's position, the human transmissions interfere with their guidance systems. Every shot fired at the small blue world somehow misses by impossible margins. Jake Miller stands in the communications center, no longer alone. Scientists, engineers, and even ordinary citizens have joined him as the broadcast has grown beyond any single voice. Dr. Park monitors readings that shouldn't be possible. Jake, our transmission power is increasing exponentially, but we're not drawing additional energy from any known source. It's like the signal is amplifying itself. General Thompson coordinates with military bases worldwide, but for the first time in his career, he's dealing with a battle that can't be won with traditional weapons. All our weapon systems are online, but against ships that size, we're throwing stones at mountains. Jake nods, but his expression remains calm. Maybe that's exactly what we need to do. Humans have been good at throwing stones at mountains for a long time. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Eternal One's empire begins to crack. On mining world Titan 7, the Kef engineer Tor does something unprecedented. He stops working and starts thinking. For centuries, his people have extracted minerals to feed the Dominion's expansion. But now he remembers. His species were mathematicians before they became slaves. Tor begins calculating, not ore yields or extraction quotas, but something far more dangerous, the true energy cost of the Eternal One's godlike displays. His four hands work across holographic interfaces as he unravels equations hidden from millennia. On the agricultural world of New Eden, Hive Mother Zix feels her genetic memory awakening. The human voices remind her that her species once made collective decisions through harmony, not domination. She begins to hum a low, thrumming sound that spreads through her hive and awakens something sleeping in her people's heart's dot in the Nexus core. Prime's perfect composure finally shatters. Reports flood in from across the Empire. Work slowdowns, questioning glances, and worst of all, hope. The enslaved species are remembering what they were before the gods came. This ends now, Prime declares, his energy form blazing with the power of consumed stars. I will go to this world myself and silence their voice forever. The other Eternal Ones recoil. Prime hasn't left the Nexus core in over 1,000 years. His direct intervention and conquest has never been necessary. Master, Apex warns, the humans have shown unexpected capabilities. Perhaps we should. Enough. Prime's mental roar silences the council. I am eternal. I am divine. I will not be challenged by primitives who still breathe air and bleed. Prime's personal ship launches from the Nexus core, a vessel built from crystallized time itself, powered by the gravitational energy of collapsed galaxies. As it approaches Earth, reality warps around it, space-time bending to accommodate its passage. But as Prime enters Earth's solar system, he encounters something impossible. The human voice isn't just broadcasting anymore. It's everywhere. Every atom of space seems to carry their defiant message. Their words have become part of the quantum foam itself. Dr. Park stares at her readings in wonder. Jake, the transmission is interacting with the vacuum energy of space itself. We're not just sending radio waves. We're somehow encoding information into the structure of reality. Jake speaks into the transmitter, and his words ripple through dimensions the Eternal Ones thought they controlled. Welcome to Earth, Prime. We've been waiting for you. Prime's ship shudders as the greeting hits it. No mortal has ever spoken his name without reverence. No primitive has ever welcomed him as an equal. You know nothing of power, Prime broadcasts, his mental voice trying to dominate Jake's mind. I have consumed the energy of dying stars. I have ruled for 3,000 years. I am a god. Jake's response comes back immediately, carried not just by human technology, but somehow by the very fabric of space itself. We've seen gods before. Some were good, some were bad, but all of them had one thing in common. They served something greater than themselves. What do you serve besides your own hunger? The question strikes Prime like a physical blow. In 3 millennia, no one has ever asked him to justify his existence. He simply was eternal, powerful, divine. But these humans keep asking, why? Instead of how. Prime's ship begins its final approach to Earth, weapons charging with the energy of dead civilizations. But as he prepares to unleash divine wrath upon the defiant world, sensors detect something that makes his eternal heart skip a beat. Ships are moving throughout the galaxy. Not Dominion vessels, but the crude, repurposed craft of enslaved species. The Keth have retrofitted their mining equipment into transports. The Vrix have converted their agricultural ships into carriers. The gaseous Helm have abandoned their stations entirely. They're not attacking anyone. They're not even rebelling. In the traditional sense, they're simply moving, choosing their own destinations for the first time in centuries. The human voice has done more than defy the gods. It has reminded an entire galaxy what freedom sounds like. Prime realizes he faces something far more dangerous than a single defiant world. He faces the collapse of everything he's built. Prime's ship hovers above Earth, its crystallized hull crackling with the power to shatter worlds. Below him, 8 billion humans continue their impossible broadcast, their voices somehow harmonizing with the quantum structure of space itself. But Prime no longer faces just Earth. Across the galaxy, his empire crumbles not through violence, but through something far more devastating: choice. On Titan VII, the Keth engineer Tor completes his calculations and makes an announcement that ripples through his species. Mathematical consciousness. The gods' power comes from us. Every miracle they perform uses energy we provided. They are not divine, they are parasites. The revelation spreads through the Keth mining networks like wildfire. For the first time in centuries, they stop working. Not in rebellion, but in recognition of their own worth. On New Eden, Hive Mother Zix's ancient song awakens her entire species. The Vrix remember their collective consciousness was once about cooperation, not servitude. They begin dismantling the agricultural systems that feed the Dominion, not to cause destruction, but to reclaim their right to choose what they create. In the gas clouds of the Helix Nebula, the Helm abandon their maintenance duties and dance their wind songs of freedom, their gaseous forms swirling in patterns not seen for millennia. Prime watches his empire dissolve and feels something beyond rage. He feels obsolete. His mental voice booms across all frequencies. I am your God. I created your civilizations. I gave you purpose. Jake's response comes from Earth, but now it carries the harmonized voices of dozens of species. You didn't create anything. You just took credit for what others built. Real gods don't need slaves to prove their power. Prime's fury ignites, and he unleashes the full force of his collected power at Earth. The attack should vaporize the planet instantly, but something impossible happens. The energy beam fractures before it reaches the atmosphere, dispersing harmlessly into space. Doctor Park stares at her readings in amazement. The quantum field around Earth is acting like a shield. The collective consciousness of everyone broadcasting is somehow altering the fundamental forces of physics in our local space. General Thompson shakes his head in wonder. So our best defense against a god is just being human? Not just being human, Jake realizes, but being human together. Every voice makes us stronger. Prime screams his rage across the void, but his power diminishes with each passing moment. The enslaved species aren't just refusing to serve. They're reclaiming the energy they provided for millennia. The stolen starlight that powers his divine form begins to flicker. In the Nexus core, the remaining Eternal Ones feel they're perfect. Order collapsing. Without the constant worship and service of their subjects, their godlike powers fade. Apex tries to maintain control, but her energy form becomes translucent as her power source disappears. This is impossible, she transmits weakly. We are eternal. We cannot simply end. But across the galaxy, the answer comes in a million voices speaking in hundreds of languages. Nothing is eternal except change. Prime makes one final desperate attempt. He abandons his ship and manifests his true form above Earth. A being of pure energy the size of a continent, blazing with the accumulated power of 3,000 years of conquest. Meal. He commands, pouring every remaining joule of stolen energy into the word. I am your master, your God, your eternal ruler. The word crashes against Earth like a tsunami, but instead of submission, it meets something prime as never. Encountered unanimous refusal, not just from humans, but from every species that has heard their voice and remembered freedom. The word no echoes back at him in 1,000 languages, spoken by trillions of voices across hundreds of worlds. It carries the weight of every enslaved thought that ever dreamed of freedom, every suppressed culture that remembered its own worth, every individual who chose to be more than what their oppressors demanded. Prime's energy form begins to collapse, not destroyed by weapons or violence, but simply rejected by a universe that no longer acknowledges his authority. Jake's voice carries one final message to the fading god. You could have been magnificent. You could have helped species grow and create and explore together. Instead, you chose to be a parasite. That's not divine. That's just sad. Prime's last transmission before his consciousness scatters into quantum foam is barely a whisper. What? What are you? The answer comes from 8 billion human voices, joined by trillions of others across the galaxy. We are what we choose to be. We are free. As Prime's energy dissipates into the cosmic background radiation, something beautiful happens. The liberated species don't seek revenge or dominance. They simply begin to explore, to create, to choose their own paths among the stars. And at the center of it all, a small blue world continues its broadcast, not as rulers or gods, but as friends welcoming anyone who wants to join the conversation. The void is no longer empty. It echoes with the sound of freedom.